Welcome back again, everybody. This is Mr. McCreary, and this is part 4 of our video series on Chapter 2. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of cultural variations as part of Section 2 of Chapter 2. The first concept we're going to talk about is cultural universals, and basically a cultural universal is any type of practice or belief that are seen in every culture around the globe. The details, of course, are going to differ, but the practices and beliefs are generally going to be the same. As it says there, cultural universals do change over time and certainly do change from one society to another. Examples of this were found in a study done by a man named George Murdoch, and in his study he identified quite a number of what he referred to as cultural universals, and some of them are listed there. For example, athletic sports. Every culture that he studied, he said, had some version of athletic competition or sports. Certainly the details differ, and we know in America the importance of sports to our society and the types of sports that tend to be popular, but even cultures that are seemingly not as modern as the United States, they still do have their competitive sports, just certainly the details and the types of sports are going to vary. The same thing can be true for cooking practices, the types and general norms to funeral ceremonies and how they are carried out, differences in the way cultures use medicine and so forth. There's many other examples to this, and that was all part of George Murdoch's study on cultural universals. Next up, we have some of the difficulties that come about when people study culture. Sometimes it's very hard to look at a culture that is not as technologically advanced or does not have the standard of living that you're used to. Sometimes it's tough to look at that culture. In some cases, it's tough to look at them seriously in some people's minds. This is where you often see the concept of ethnocentrism creep into people's studies. As it says there, ethnocentrism refers to the assumption that one's own culture represents the norm or is superior to all others. And that is a type of belief system that most sociologists try to avoid when they are studying various cultures. Basically, trying to take all the judgments of right, wrong, good, better out of the mix when you're studying cultures. Sociologists, when they study other cultures, would look at the differences, look at why those differences exist, but try to avoid the bias or the judgments attached towards studying other cultures. Cultural relativism, on the other hand, is what is generally looked at as the goal when you are studying other cultures, because it involves not making those judgments. It says there, cultural relativism views people's behaviors from the perspective of their own culture. Basically, an example of that would say, here's what this culture says they believe in, but on the other hand, here's what I see them actually doing, and the two don't seem to jive. There seems to be a contradiction in this culture's value system and the way they actually behave. So using that type of criticism would be okay, because you're not judging them through the eyes of your culture. You are raising questions about what this culture says they believe in, and then comparing that to what they actually do. So there's a way to do it. Having a bias and seeing other cultures through the eyes of your own culture can be difficult to avoid, but it certainly is the goal with sociology. Xenocentrism is put on this screen here just because it is the opposite of ethnocentrism. And as it says there, it is the belief that the products, styles, or ideas of another society are better than those from your own society. So an example of that would be maybe someone in America who refuses to purchase an American-made car, thinking that there's no way on earth American car companies could possibly make a car that is as good as, say, a Japanese vehicle or a German vehicle. So they kind of have that closed-mindedness of our culture generally does not match up in that particular way. And certainly there's other examples of that, and it can be smaller than, say, a car, an example, or it could be something largely as someone else's entire culture is better than the one that you are currently in.